The Adulting with ADHD podcast is not a substitute for medical advice. Please see a medical professional if you think you have ADHD or have ADHD and need additional assistance. For podcast archives, please visit patreon.com/adultingwithadhd. And this is the Adulting with ADHD podcast, self-empowerment for people with ADHD. Today, I'm happy to have with me Alexis Hasselberger. Alexis is a time management, productivity, and leadership coach. Welcome to the show, Alexis.
Sarah, thanks for having me on.
To start us off, can you share a little bit about your journey, how you got into coaching on time management and productivity, and how ADHD became a part of your work?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I used to work in startups, like long before I started this business, before I started my coaching practice. I worked in early stage startups in Silicon Valley, doing everything that wasn't sales and engineering. So I had roles like director of operations, director of HR, director of both, chief of staff, like just the person who just did all of the other things, right? And I also knew that I didn't want to work. I was about to say, I didn't want to work really hard. That wasn't the truth, but I didn't want to work more than, I didn't want to work really hard, but I didn't want to work more than 40 hours a week. And I saw people burning out left and right around. And like the startup culture is a culture where people really do work late into the evening, sometimes staying at the office, et cetera. And I started trying to figure out like, how can I do these two things? How can I succeed at work? And also, how can I have a full life outside of work? And eventually, people started coming to me for that sort of advice, I think for a couple of reasons. One, because they saw that I was doing it, right? Like I was having a life outside of work and I was getting promoted, et cetera. But also because these are skills that are learned, right? These aren't skills that I came with. These aren't skills that I was born with. And I think other people saw that those were skills that they might want as well, because nobody teaches this stuff in school. Like we just have to figure it out. And in terms of ADHD, my first clients were adults with ADHD, as is not surprising. And it was actually through my clients that I was diagnosed myself, because when they started coming to me, the first thing I did, I was like, oh my gosh, well, I have to do a lot of research. Like I need to serve this population. I can't take this population's money if I can't serve them. Like I did all of this research and I was like, this is very interesting. This is the stuff that I already teach and talk about. And then the more clients I had with ADHD, the more stories I heard, the more I was like, wait, everything these people are experiencing is the exact same thing I've been experiencing since I was 5 years old. I started my life and started school. And so then I had the roundabout diagnosis where I then, had my long list of all the things that I was like, oh, this makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you, psychiatrist? And then I was diagnosed with ADHD as well. And then everything made so much more sense about the whole rest of my life. And also why I think that type of coaching that I do is both so relevant to other folks with ADHD and maybe that I resonate because I don't come to it with the same, I'm not a productivity bro, right? I'm not out there being like better, faster, wake up early, like all of that stuff that I just find to be complete BS.
If you're listening to this show, you get how stress and overwhelm can wreak havoc on your life, and how sometimes the issue runs deeper than that. That's where ADHD Online comes in. They offer a thorough, clinically backed assessment that not only checks for ADHD, but also screens for anxiety, depression, and more. To save $40 and to get on the path to relief now, visit ADHDonline/adulting with ADHD and use promo code ADultingADHD40. Many adults with ADHD struggle with self-criticism when systems or strategies don't work for them. How do you help your clients reframe these moments with self-compassion while staying focused on their goals?
Yeah, this is so true, right? I just yesterday was having a coaching call with a client who we're almost at the end of our engagement and he has come so far. He's an attorney, he has ADHD, he's brilliant. And these were things that he really struggled with. And he was really harsh on himself when we started working together, as many of my clients are. They're incredibly harsh on themselves, believing, I think that, if they got to be hard on themselves. Otherwise, they're not going to get better at this stuff, right? And as you know, and I know, that's just the opposite of what is true, right? The kinder that we can be to ourselves, the more likely we are to want to continue trying at the things that we are trying to do. And so I try to bring in a lot of data. I try to bring in the work of Kristen Neff around self-compassion and try to share what I know about positive self-talk, right? And how do we be kind to ourselves? I tell people, I just say, hey, every time you do something that is like even on the road to what you're trying to do, right? Even if you just think about the thing that you're trying to do, congratulate yourselves. Like seriously, out loud, congratulate yourself. And you will want to make a little bit more progress than if you're just beating yourself up constantly and all the time. So I try to bring that into the coaching really early. And then if people are resistant to this idea, and some of them are, I ask them to just experiment with it and see if it works. And it does. But sometimes we need to prove that to ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. It reminds me of the whole, if you don't feel like getting on a treadmill, just do it for 5 minutes
Right.
kind of idea. Yeah,
Or 30 seconds. Or just put your shoes on.
exactly. Just get out of bed. In your experience, what are some practical workplace strategies that blend productivity with protecting your mental health, especially for us with ADHD that are in high pressure environments?
Yes. So I think that really thinking about what boundaries make sense for you and trying to set them and enforce them is really important in a workplace, because I think that a lot of folks, especially those with that I know with ADHD, are also sometimes people pleasers, right? We're working really, really hard. We're trying to make sure that we are successful, despite the fact that we may struggle with things that are come easier to other people in the workplace. And so often we're kind of just working overtime if we don't have the right strategies, et cetera. And so thinking about what our boundaries are, and these in a world of technology and things and pings, like a lot of times this means like communication boundaries, right? So turning off notifications, having an out of office message or an away message on Slack that just says, hey, I'm heads down for a few hours. Here's how to get me in an emergency, so that we can not set ourselves up in an environment that we know is going to be incredibly stressful and pulling us away from things. So I think boundaries is really important. And then I also think that using some sort of an external brain, like using some sort of an external task system, becomes incredibly important, especially with short-term memory issues, right? I know I can't remember literally anything. And I also don't want to have that ball of anxiety in the back of my head all the time that says, I know I'm missing something or many things. I just don't know what they are or when they're going to come back to bite me, you know?
Yeah, I actually have a note on my keyboard right now. Start the recording for that
Yeah.
very reason. Exactly.
Yes, totally. I have a group coaching call that happens every week, and I have an alarm an every week alarm on my phone 1 minute before it starts that says record, you know, because I will forget and then I will feel bad. And I don't want to feel bad because it's not my fault. But yeah, having some sort of system externally. So that can be a reminders, that can be alarms for specific things that are time based. But a lot of this means like having some sort of external system that you really trust. And for a lot of people, that's a task app or something, just a place where all of those thoughts that you have, all those brilliant ideas that you have, but you don't want to follow all of the time, because if you do, you'll never get your actual work done. Like having a place to put those things becomes really important.
Yeah. Self compassion can sometimes feel like the opposite of productivity in our hustle driven culture. How do you help clients with self compassion as an advantage rather than a weakness?
So yeah, I try to bring it back again to data, right? And I try to show them that, what the studies show, what the science shows is that when we are kinder to ourselves, we actually do better than when we are mean to ourselves, right? And that I also try to talk a lot about how, we talk to ourselves versus how we talk to other people, right? Because if you wouldn't talk to your child or even your dog in the way that you are talking to yourself, like, that when you punish somebody, that doesn't help you get the result that you want, right? That just makes them shrink, that makes them resentful, that makes them maybe compliant in the moment, but burn out in the long term, right? It's not the thing that actually works. And so I think it's really hard because this stuff is so ingrained in us, right? But even if we can just have a little glimmer where we see, oh, maybe like one time we didn't beat ourselves up and instead we just said something nice to ourselves? And how did that feel? And how did that affect our motivation to want to do the things? And if we can start to see that when we are kind to ourselves, it actually increases our productivity because it allows us to get the things done instead of focusing on all the things that we have done, quote, wrong, then people start to see slowly over time, right? That, oh, right, when I am nice to myself, things go better. And I think it often requires that experiential learning.
And this stuff, it's so valuable. I have these conversations with my third grader, and it makes me wonder if we had all this information when we were in the third grade.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine what different people we would be?
We're completely different people.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, Alexis, what's a common struggle among your clients these days?
Oh my gosh. I think there's one thing that actually almost everyone shows up with who reaches out to me. And this is true of, I think, ambitious people just in general. But it is that they believe that there is some way, they just don't know it yet, that it's going to be possible for them to Tetris everything together in this perfect strategy so that they are able to, quote, do it all. And the reality is that no one can do it all. Doing it all is this false thing that we tell ourselves. I think it maybe comes from, the Puritan work ethic that we have here in the US and this, strive always towards capitalism. But people think that like there's something wrong with them, that they're not able to do it all, and that somehow there is a way to do it all. And this is actually an incredibly important belief to break down or to turn into a myth before we get started or as we're getting started. And the reason for this is that it's just impossible. It's an impossible goal that makes everybody feel bad. And so when we're stuck in this worldview of believing that somehow we can do it all, we burn out. We work so hard and we work at this impossible goal, right? Because the truth is that you and me and everybody else, we could all work 18 hours a day for the rest of our lives, and there would still be work the next day, right? The work will never end, right? Our ideas will never end. I don't know about you, but I literally have like 700 things on my someday maybe list. Like I'm always thinking about good ideas that I think are fantastic if I just had the time. And the reality is that I don't and you don't. And so while I think it can feel a little frustrating or maybe demoralizing to realize that you cannot do it all, as soon as you have actually accepted this, what happens is that you have so much more agency over your life and your time, because now you realize that time is actually about trade-offs, right? That we can't do it all. We're not going to be able to do it all. But if I can teach someone to prioritize in such a way so that they know that every day the things that they did were more important than the things that they didn't do, and that they can feel good about those trade-offs, then we're not constantly overworking, assuming that somehow we will get to the end or that we will get, quote, caught up, which is like not a thing that exists either, right? We want to be able to prioritize so that we feel good about those trade-offs. And once we get there, then this false belief really dissipates and people feel like they have a lot more agency and control.
I've really appreciated this conversation, Alexis. For listeners who want to learn more about you and access your resources, where's the best place for them to connect?
The best place is my website. It's alexishasselberger.com, which I hope you'll put in the show notes because it's
Oh,
hard to
yes.
spell.
Yeah.
And then from there, they can download a free distraction action plan to help you with those myriad distractions that are happening all day long and stealing your time, be able to reclaim some time there. And I have a podcast too. It's called the Do More Stress Less podcast, and you can access that from my website.
Oh, wonderful. I love that name.
Thanks.
Do more, stress less. Very
That's what we
enticing.
want.
Yeah. Thanks again, Alexis.
Thanks, Sarah.